It's Wednesday, the 29th of August. This evening's midweek catch-up. It's all been on the radio already. We go over Richard Keogh's mental managerial debuts. Blackpool drew 4-4 at Cambridge on Saturday. Also, Tuesday night, superb Carabo Cup win at Blackburn, the first since 1977. We also go over that grapevine news around the vacant managerial hot seat at Bloomfield Road. I'm John Aspinall. This is the Seasons Podcast Extra Time show, Cambridge and Rovers reactions. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Welcome back to the podcast on a Thursday. 2 games to catch up on. In the studio this evening are Matt, Nick. Matt, otherwise known as Mitch, otherwise known as my ticket getter for Blackburn away. And I'm sure glad that you moseyed down to Bloomfield Road to get a ticket for me and Nick. What a superb day it was on the Tuesday night.
It was a tremendous day. It was only spoiled by the fact that when I said they said, who are they for? I said, it's John Aspinall, and they didn't know who you were, John. That's the only disappointment.
There'll be a black mark against my name now, anyway. Everyone listens to Talk Sport. Just been on Talk Sport too, talking about the pool. Yeah, there might be an coming from the computer when my name goes into the system. Season ticket deleted. Nick, yeah, it was a great day, wasn't it?
It was, yes. Well, we'll come on to that after the Cambridge game, but yes, we left Blackburn with a smile on our face, which we don't normally do. It was, both games have been quite refreshing, haven't they, after the beige football that we've experienced in the season gone by.
Well, we don't leave a smile on our face after any Blackpool games over the past season. Bar the odd little. What's the word for something that doesn't happen very often?
Anomaly.
That's the one. Where's Tim when you need him?
I was going to say away win.
I don't get that, Matt. I'm a bit tired this evening. Yeah. When was the last time I come up from behind? Right, Matt, as you were almost being mocked, and you were mocking yourself almost for going to Cambridge, weren't you? Obviously, you'd arranged all these plans before the removal of Mr. Critchley and Mr. Keogh's appointment, marketing it to your missus as a cultural trip that just happened to be coinciding with Blackpool playing away at Cambridge. But what a game to go to, eh?
It was, and when it took me about an hour and a half just to get to the Fellwall Viaduct on Friday afternoon, being bank holiday, I was sort of semi-regretting it at that particular point. But yes, we managed to get down there, had a very nice Friday evening out, the lovely Cambridgeshire sunshine, people punting on the River Cam. So thought, we'll just have a drinks and relax into the weekend, get something to eat. So we booked our obligatory punt on Saturday morning, having not checked the weather forecast. And then, of course, woke up on Saturday morning, absolutely pissing it down in Cambridge till probably about 4:45 or something like that. But we had a nice time, and obviously the football, which we'll talk about in a minute, was I wouldn't say it was the cherry on the cake, because 4-1 up, we thought it was a cherry on the cake and much more. But just a weird game. Anyway, we'll discuss that more in a minute.
Now, who can I think of that might enjoy or would be in his element going on a punt down, what's the river called in
Cam.
The River Cam.
Mm.
Who would be right at home in that environment?
It'd be very good if he could do some kind of like travel show doing it as well, wouldn't he? Perhaps based on it. He'd get the train there, meet some people, maybe sample a bit of food and go, delicious.
Meet a local
my weekend.
Be like
And
a
pair of
local
chinos and a
folk band.
cravat.
But he didn't go. He's been very quiet on the chat as old Tim recently. I think he's been working too hard. He didn't even go to Blackburn, did he? We were all very shocked.
He didn't know. Thought he might be there.
Maybe he is running the country.
Yeah.
We've joked about it, but maybe actually he is running the country.
He's a non-smoker, isn't he?
He is, yeah. Just musing on the smoking ban in public.
He's watching old Nigel Farage smoking a fag and having a pint outside the nearest pub to Westminster in defiance at Tim before. It's not going to go down well in those quarters. I wonder who's going to, if this law does come in, that the smoking in public places outside ban. I wonder who's going to police that outside the Armfield on the balcony. I wouldn't like that gig.
Raggy out with a little yellow tabard on.
With a wig on like Keith Lard and a clipboard. Right, Cambridge away. Formation, Matt. I'm just looking at FOTMob now. It's got us down as a 3-4-3. Read the team. O'Donnell, Bagott, Husband, Casey as the back three. Centre mids, Evans, Norburn, Hamilton on the right, Coulson on the left. Fletcher up top with Joseph and Ballard as the wide men. Is that how you read the game?
It was, yeah. And what was more intriguing was not the three at the back necessarily, but the three at the front. So that was like an instant sort of change from what we've been sort of used to. It was still, a little bit of a conversation in the pub. There was just a few of us who met beforehand as to whether we would play somebody at right back, but we weren't quite sure. But it seemed on the face of it, it was going to be a 3-4-3 sort of formation-ish, which I think is what it sort of transpired to be. But it was more the fact that it'd thrown in Joseph and Ballard together, which I thought was quite interesting. And obviously Fletcher being sort of like the battering ram type of centre forward. So it was interesting to see how that was going to develop. So it was refreshing to see it initially. And then obviously as the game sort of panned out, it just looked like genius after minutes, basically. Everyone seemed to be a little bit more relaxed and passing the ball through midfield and all this very weird stuff that we haven't seen for what seems to be like 12 or 15 months or thereabouts. And it just had a better flow to it. And the lineup was a little bit different, and that's all it seemed to take. And obviously we don't know what's going on behind closed doors in a couple of days before training wise and all the rest of it. But it seemed like everybody seemed to be a little bit more comfortable with what they were doing instantly.
A player that didn't look very comfortable was Jimmy Husband after he headed it in because he didn't know what the hell to do on his celebration, did he, Mitch?
No, but what a header. And it was, we scored two identical goals. And it does beg the question, what have we been doing on set pieces up to now? Because we were really dangerous from set pieces, weren't we? Cambridge's defence was awful, but my take on it was that we just seemed to commit more men at dangerous situations, whether in open play or whether in a corner or whether in a free kick around the box. We just seemed to have sort of, enough players in the box moving and committed to attacking the ball to give the other team something to think about, which hasn't always been the case, has it? In recent times, we've had a free kick and we seem to leave three back just in case, whereas we seem to just leave. Matt probably has a better take on it being there because watching on the stream you can only see from the camera, but it seemed like we literally just left CJ back, and it really paid off.
Yeah, the one thing that I instantly noticed within a few minutes really was the movement from Ballard and Joseph was really, really good. Obviously, that's the stuff you don't see on the stream that you do see live on a game. And, whilst there were, Ballard had a chance early on, didn't he, with one-on-one, which he didn't take, unfortunately. But it was that sort of movement that led to that opportunity. And Joseph all of a sudden, like he's 2-3 yards quicker as well. It was just so different. But you just think, why? That's the frustration about it all, really. But obviously we reaped the rewards. And just going back to what Mitch was saying about set pieces, obviously Evans seems to be the set piece guy to go to. And his corners and his dead balls, generally speaking, have been really good. But I just can't believe it's just the fact that somebody can put a ball in ever so slightly better. I think hit the nail on the head, really, when there's a bit more commitment going on and more bodies in the box where it should be bodies in the box. Whereas we've said in the past, you're just relying on one person in the 18-yard area, which is just bonkers, isn't it, if you're trying to score goals.
Nick, talk us through the Cambridge equaliser, of course, coming from none other than Shane Lavery.
Yeah, I think was it a throw-in? We didn't pick up their runner
or defending.
It was, I can't remember. It might have been Casey who didn't pick his man up, and it came across, and a few yards out, and it's that man Lavery, isn't it? Which I suppose it was always going to happen, wasn't it? Because up till then, I think we'd looked pretty comfortable, and I echo what Matt and Mitch had said, that we just looked so much more comfortable, relaxed on the ball. We've used the term "take the handbrake off," and it looked like that's what happened. And I don't know what Uncle Richard's team talk was, but I would hazard a guess that it was probably nothing much more than just go out and enjoy yourselves, because they looked like that's what they were doing, that not overthinking it and having this system drilled into them where if you're on the ball in this position, this is what the iPad program says you should do. The iPad was switched off and it was just go out and play football. Don't overcomplicate it. And up until that equaliser, we looked good value for it. Like Matt said, Ballard had a very good chance. He looked really quick. Joseph looked absolutely fantastic. Probably one of the best games we've seen him play. And credit to Keogh. He's only been in the job 2 minutes, but it's not taken that much to realise what the potential is in the team and what we can do to get the best out of them. And I know obviously it went pear-shaped in the second half, which we'll come on to. But I think had Critchley been in charge, we certainly wouldn't be sat here now talking about a 4-4 crazy game of football. We'd be talking about a rinse and repeat 1-0 defeat more than likely. So we've let 4 in, but I dare say there was smiles on everyone's faces and moments from that game of pure joy that we haven't had before. Even when last season when we were winning, we've talked many times about how it felt like it was hard work. It was just back to enjoying football again, and that was the biggest thing for me, that there is that potential in the team, and it hasn't taken much to realise it. It's, like I say, it's not necessarily having to overcomplicate it, really. It's just asking people to go and play to their strengths, express themselves. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it. And they looked like they weren't afraid to go and try something, take a man on, try a pass, have a shot, whatever it might be. And it was extremely refreshing to see.
Can I just jump in on that with what you were saying about what Keogh said? In his really very lovable post-match interview where he swore, he actually said something that I thought was a really intelligent comment, where he said, well, obviously we've not had that long, and he said, but you want to get your ideas across to the players, but you've got to be aware of the line between overburdening them with instructions and giving them a plan. And I thought that kind of really speaks to what Nick was saying there about I felt like it was a very much like a coded comment that that's what has been done. And I thought he was basically saying that, I told them to go and play football. I told them what position they were playing and told them to go and play football. And I think what comes out of that is a sense that they have to take some responsibility. I think Critchley, with the best intentions in the world, was filling their heads so full of instructions about where to run and what to do and who to pass to in this situation, and exactly how many yards he wanted the data bra to show and all of that kind of stuff. And it means that they can go out and they can do what he's told them to do. They can sort of fulfill that role he's given them, and then they've done their bit. But if the manager goes out and goes, right, you're doing that, we'll play, play to feet, get on with it. It's kind of putting the impetus on them to actually take some responsibility, because they aren't sort of fulfilling all these little micro targets that have been set, because those little micro targets don't exist. And I think it's far more enjoyable, but I think it also puts the emphasis on the players that it's your job to go and work out how to beat the team in front of you.
Just going off on a slight tangent, Mitch. I'm listening to this audio book called Expected Goals at the moment. It's on the section about the Pro Zone software that all teams use these days. And it's quite a funny section that a lot of the players, they were basically putting up the Pro Zone stats on all the boards at the training grounds to kind of shame players that aren't hitting the targets almost. And a lot of the defenders and some defensive midfielders started gaming the system. So playing loads of little mini passes amongst themselves across the back five, back and forth. So they're getting the pass rate up. And that's
have you seen The Wire?
Sorry.
Have you seen the TV show The Wire?
No, I've heard of it. I've not seen it.
I'll keep it brief then. The Wire has an incredible series which is all about schools, and it's about targets and data for schools, and how schools essentially don't end up not actually teaching the kids anything, but just hitting the targets. And it's this brilliant metaphor for the way the police, the way the police also do the same thing. The police just go around arresting people randomly and not actually stopping crime, because they become over focused on the targets. And I think that's basically the same thing you're saying, is the players are doing what it takes to generate the evidence of their performance, and actually you end up forgetting to beat the other team on a football pitch. You lose the point of the thing when you have too many micro targets set for you.
Matt, I'm sure Jimmy Husband didn't have one of his micro targets for this game to score 2 goals. It's like waiting for a bus. He looked even more amazed when that went in.
We were somebody started singing if Husband scores the corner. Sorry, shortly after he'd scored his second, and somebody started singing if Husband scores, we're on the pitch, because obviously getting a hat trick would have just been absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, what was it? 2 goals in something like 180 games or something ridiculous he scored for us prior to Saturday. He's just a body in the box, but he's just probably an extra body in the box. Yeah, 2 great deliveries, and it was him. It could have been anybody else. Got the rewards for it, and obviously when he turned away for the second one, it was. He was as laughing as probably as much as the rest of us were in the stands, really. But it just showed they were enjoying it, And the fact that Jimmy Husband scored twice, well, can't enjoy it when that happens. When can you?
Great delivery again, Mitch, from, was it Evans, who's put both those crosses in?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and he's added quality to us, hasn't he? He's got.
I like him.
He's got great range. He's very reliable on set pieces. He hit the bar, didn't he, at one point in the first half did he draw a really good save? I can't remember. He had a good free kick on target as well. Yeah, I like him a lot.
Made a big difference as well at Blackburn Tuesday night when he came on. Nick, so we've gone 2-1 up in dream mode a couple of minutes later when Carl Joseph has not only scored that goal, but he's made it for himself, showing fantastic desire to win it. And what a finish.
Unbelievable. I mean, again, from Cambridge point of view, I'm sure Gary Monk was having harsh words with him at half-time about all 3 of the goals, because it was a mistake for the third. But he still had so much to do. And like I say, it was that determination. He was on the front foot. He won the ball and raced through. And I have to admit, when it left his boot for a tiny fraction of a second, I thought he'd put too much on it. I thought, he skied it a bit, but it turned out to be absolutely perfect. And what a finish. And, he has got that in his locker. He scored a very good goal pre-season at Crewe. And I was so pleased for him because I said at the start of the season, I think there is a player in there. And he was, certainly think he was one who was suffering in the formation and the system of the previous manager. And again, it just looked like the shackles were off and he was enjoying his football again. I don't think he scores that goal playing in the formation he had been playing in. He was head down. He didn't look like he had any confidence, wasn't enjoying it. Certainly think playing in a 3, you get the best out of him. It doesn't work as well in a 2 for me. So that helped. And yeah, it was an absolutely fantastic finish. Well deserved as well.
Let's just dip into the comments because we had 3 people making a pretty similar point. Big Abs just said Norburn seems different also. MB said Morgan and Evans must be the best passing midfield in the league, surely. And Mark said, I think Norburn is starting to look really effective. Also, just to throw that to the room for any thoughts on those comments there.
I wouldn't disagree. I think obviously we know Evans is quality, and we've said many times with Norburn, you saw the player he was for Peterborough. We were all really pleased when he signed for us, and it just never quite seemed to happen with him. And again, you just wonder if it's another player who was suffering because of the system. And in the 2 games that he's played in since, he does look again just like he can enjoy his football a bit more, and we're starting to see the best of him, and there's potentially a really good partnership there because he is a quality player, and he got a lot of stick. But again, I think we go back to what was being drilled into the players, what they were being asked to do. Like Mitch said, this is what I want you to do, and it's seemingly nothing more. And it wasn't a great deal. So hopefully, whether we know it's probably going to be Keogh on Saturday, but beyond that, we will see. But whoever ends up being the manager, hopefully has a similar philosophy in terms of just letting them play football a bit because he's a decent player.
Mitch, we're piping up. Feel free to.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think it's his body language because the Norburn's just looked, since he's been here, he's just looked like he's been in a foul mood all the way through. And I know there's sort of a bit of that about him. He's got that kind of like hard man persona, but he's just looked, I don't know, lighter on his feet and his shoulders a bit less tense. And he may have cracked a smile once or twice in the last couple of games, whereas he just looked pissed off, really, from about the 3rd game I saw him play, to the point where I was getting, as much as sort of the sideways and backwards passing, I was sort of, I don't know, you look at a player, sort of, what was the thing Raggy once said, they have our dreams at their feet, which was a beautifully poetic thing to say. And you think, wow, look at football and you think, what a privilege. And you've got a guy sort of stropping around in a sort of permanent rage, and that seems to have lifted from him. He just gives off a different vibe, which is really nice to see. You're on mute, John.
Yeah, Matt, back to the game. We've gone in 3-1 at half time. What was the mood like under the terraces, and did you celebrate with a half-time libation, as Tim would say?
No, I didn't. I was it was just a bit chaotic, should we say, at half time. Really, I think a lot of us were in various states of shock and dizziness and all sorts. So we were just sort of, well, I was talking as I was with, and we just sort of just mulling over what the hell's happened, really, because everyone wanted to say, where's this come from? What's happening? All right, yeah. With respect, at the time, we were thinking, well, it's only Cambridge and all this sort of stuff. But we could visibly see it was just like a different team almost than what we've seen for however many months. So no refreshment needed. I was just, taking
high
in
high on life,
the liquor of 3-1 up at half time, which I cannot remember the last time that was. And then I'll just preempt what you're probably going to say, to go 4-1 up a few minutes after the break. And Ballard really deserved his goal because he worked very, very hard off the ball, as I mentioned earlier. And it's a shame when I think back about that first attempt that he had, but he just looks a natural goal scorer to me. And if he can get properly match fit, because obviously he's not played any games at this level ever, And if he can get properly match fit and stay fit for 90 minutes for a long time, I think we might have something with him if we can carry on this sort of front foot trajectory.
Did he give Jerry Yates vibes at the game? Because when watching on TV, I was just very much thinking Yates.
Yeah, definitely. It's the first time we've had somebody like Yates who can harry and hassle and do all that sort of stuff, which obviously as an opposition defender is a nightmare, you know. But the fact is as well, he was on the shoulder of the centre halves and the fullbacks all the time. There was a lot of movement going on that, say, wasn't necessarily on the stream. So he was always the better pass away from, you know, their back 3-4, whatever it was they were playing. So he looks very, very good to me. So let's hope it continues.
The other thing I noticed about him was he did that thing that Jerry did. He already had an idea as he received the ball. So many of our players under Critchley would make a pass and then they'd take a touch and decide what to do. Whereas there were several times when he sort of span away from someone quite unpredictably. You could see he was 10 seconds ahead of thinking, or 5 seconds ahead of thinking, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then he'd get it and he'd be into the move before the defender could react, which was very Jerry Yates. Yeah,
and weirdly, I noticed that on against the Blackburn game more because I was sort of watching him a little bit more, and he did. I think he might have been offside, but he did this. He was right in between the two centre halves, and he just sort of one touch, and he was through when he'd gone. But he was either offside or the ball was pulled back for some reason. And I just thought, yeah, he's got that brain. You know, he's just a little bit ahead of the centre halves, which is the important thing as you're a centre forward, I dare say. So yeah, for a young kid, he's got not just the natural attributes, but he seems to have a few brain cells to go with it, which is great.
It was a nice, cool finish as well. Just
great through ball as well.
Yeah. Great ball from Joseph as well, Nick.
It was superb. Yeah, absolutely fantastic pattern. Like Matt says, it looks like he's got something about him. He's quick, obviously, but got good brain on him as well. He was at Reading last season, wasn't he? I think he'd scored a few and then picked up a bad injury. So you know, touch wood, because we had a couple of injuries against Blackburn, didn't we? But if he stays injury free, I think we've got a very good player on our hands there.
And where did it all go wrong? Cock a hoop, 4-1 up.
I'll tell you where it went wrong, John. It went wrong when I broke my golden rule for my accumulator of never bet on Blackpool, and I did. And
what, in play or before the match?
Before the match, because I just thought, I'm not saying I saw it coming or anything, but I just thought, Critchley's gone, new start, we're going to be positive, and I really fancied us to get the win. And obviously at 4-1 up, my other results were in. I was on for 96 quid for the second week run. I had won on the first week. Happy days. And so I was more bitter than most when that fourth went in.
I think it went wrong in three ways. I think it went wrong in the fact we didn't have a first choice goalkeeper available. You know, no disrespect to Richard O'Donnell, but he is the backup, and he was signed as the backup, and you know he's been a fourth tier goalkeeper for quite a long time. I think it went wrong because Evans tired, and the quality of Evans' play wasn't as good. I mean, he made a mistake for one of the goals, a really bad mistake for one of the goals. And I think it also went wrong when we took Ash Fletcher off, because I don't think the ball stuck. I thought Rhodes could have got the fifth, and that would have obviously sealed it. And you can never. Rhodes will be a good finisher when he's 75, but athletically and as a hold-up man, Fletcher was streets ahead of him. And I think quite a lot of stuff went. We haven't really mentioned Fletcher. Quite a lot. Fletcher made sense in that game in just being the gnarly, rugged irritant, but he's got a bit of quality about him with his feet as well. And he made sense because he wasn't there to score the goals in that game. He was there to make sure the ball could be moved on to Joseph or Ballard or dropped into a midfielder to score the goals. And I think when he went off, Rhodes didn't perform anything like the same role, and the ball bounced off him rather than sort of being taken into him. And I think those three things added up, combined with some just god-awful defending. And Gary Monk put in Gary Monk. I looked at Monk with about however long it was going to go, and he was kind of sat there musing. And I thought, you've been done. You're supposed to be a good manager. You're shit, aren't you? Ha ha ha. And he was obviously thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And he chucked on a couple of really pacey players, didn't he?
And took off Sully Kaikai.
I was just coming to that, John. He took off the managerial football skills of Sully Kaikai and put on a couple of really, really pacey players, and they just ate our defence up. So that those sort of three things combining of not being able to hold it up, losing the sort of quality in the midfield a bit, and having the pace at the back exposed, and it was wild.
When they scored their third, I always make a point of just watching a game on a stream. You put your phone in the side of the room. Don't dip into the patrons group. Don't have any notifications. After they scored their third, I thought, well, I'll see what's going on. Have a bit of a read because it was a bit of a worrying time. And then immediately it was like, fuck, shit, don't believe it, etc. on the messages. And I thought, these have come in a bit late for 4-3. And I was thinking, surely not 4-4, surely not. And then literally, as I looked up on the screen, there's Shane Lavery making it 4-4. Let's talk Lavery. Why did he never do that for us? Or was it just because we were a complete disarray at the back? To be fair to Lavery as well, I liked the fact that he celebrated. He doesn't owe Blackpool anything. And I'm pretty much against these players that don't celebrate. All right, yeah, give it a bit of, show some respect. But there's no reason not to celebrate your goal against former clubs.
Yeah, he didn't run in front of us and, pull his shirt over his head or anything like that, or give any hand gestures or anything. He was just celebrating the goal like a striker should, I suppose, at both ends, unfortunately. And he just did what Lavery did. You didn't actually notice him massively during the game, weirdly enough, except for he does come alive sort of in the area, doesn't he? And that's what, we'll remember his better days for. He admittedly seemed to be a yard quicker than last season, or our defence is a yard slower. I can't quite make my mind up really over that. But yeah, once they brought a couple of their quick lads on, was the writing on the wall? Probably, in terms of conceding goals. You could just see it happening. It was never going to, once they got that second, you could just feel that it was going to be a third. And then you could feel even more that it was going to be a fourth.
Was there that genuinely that sense in the away end, Matt, when that
certainly from my perspective, because they just seem to be we just seem to be a little bit chaotic. And whilst we said earlier, just go out and play the game, lads, there just didn't seem to be that, I don't know, nous or whatever to sort of control the game. And all those things that Mitch just said were factors amongst that, especially, not being able to hold the ball up is like, you just give the ball back to them on a halfway line every time we had the ball. And it was just a matter of hoping that they weren't going to get a fifth. And once they scored their fourth, then, I don't know, we were like a boxer on the ropes. We sort of got our heads cleared and then we were okay again. But then it was a little bit sort of end to end for the last sort of 10 minutes or so. But you just didn't feel as though either team at that particular point of the game had the quality to finish either one off, really. So it was a bit, I don't know, just a strange ending to what was, obviously 20 minutes earlier, a really good game. And it was a bit odd, really, because at the end of the game, I didn't know what to do almost. I was sort of like, I don't know, well, it's a funny old game type of thing. And then I wasn't too upset because I could see the green shoots of recovery happening, but I was a little bit pissed off because we were 4-1 up away from home. So it was just all emotions all over the place, really. But, when we talk about Blackburn, then, we can sort of see those shoots going a little bit higher, can't we, hopefully?
I think there's a good, it was interesting. I was sort of went online after the game and there was quite an interesting debate about how can you not be really pissed off about what's just happened versus, we should be optimistic. And I think the way I could sum it up, I was trying to think of an analogy for it. I know John likes an analogy, but if you've got a kid who can't read or count, that's us against Stockport. We were shit at attacking and we were shit at defending. So with the kid who can't read or count, and if you teach that kid to do one of those things, to either read or count, you're giving that kid a future, aren't you? There's a prospect and some optimism for that kid. And okay, the kid still can't do one of the things, but he can do one of the things, and then you can focus on the thing he can't do. And I felt a bit like that. Yeah, we did blow up, and it was crap, and some of the defending was crap. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It was chaotic, and we didn't. I hate the phrase game management. It's one of my least favorite phrases in football. It's just another word for time wasting. But we didn't game manage it well enough, and all of that stuff. But at the same time, we did score 4 goals, and we could actually have scored 7, 8 goals in that game. We had chances, we created chances, and then what it allows Keogh to do after the game is say, "Well done, lads. That was great. On training, I think we'll focus on defending a bit." Whereas after Stockport, and to a certain extent after the other game, which I've already forgotten, Crawley, you kind of went, "Well, we're crap at everything. What do you focus on? You have to focus on everything. And where do you even begin?"
I think that was the thing that I took away from it overall, was we are capable of scoring goals. We can pass the ball forward, we can go wide, we can do the things that you're supposed to do and create chances. So therefore, there's a little bit of hope there, isn't there? And like you say, that's your building blocks. And I suppose the cliche is a lot of managers will build from the back. Well, we might have to do it from the other end. I don't know. But yeah. It was a funny old game.
We had less possession, but higher XG 2.11, higher shots 12, 7 shots on target, 5 big chances, one of which we've missed. Pretty much stat wise, they've put away nearly every big chance they've had. So
do you want a fun stat fact?
Go on.
So if you add up Reading away, where if we remember Reading away, we had to win the game to get in the playoffs, and there was no point trying to draw or minimise damage. Crawley and Stockport, we have it's either 1 less or the same number of shots on target in the one game as those 3 games put together. Which, considering one of them was almost a free hit must-win game, end of season spectacular, says everything, doesn't it?
Okay. Let's move on to Blackburn. Blackburn 2, Blackpool.
You've got
1.
that the wrong way
We
around.
were scrambling. around for. Sorry, all the way around. I'll just edit that quickly.
Don't take that away from us.
Paste an old banner.
EFL just reading the draw as we speak.
Yeah, sorry, you're not having that win.
Hey,
that's more
Blackburn
like it.
1, Blackpool 2. Nick, as I was saying, I was frantically changing that graphic there. They don't make it easy to get tickets for these games. 4 p.m. cut-off point, no print-at-home options, no pay on the gate. A lot of people have made the decision just to go on the day before, and it's just stupid how hard it is to get tickets for games. Luckily,
yeah, I don't know what the ruling is on it, why it wasn't pay on the gate. But like you say, not everybody can just get there on the lunch hour or finish work at 3 to get down before 4 o'clock to get a ticket. And you look at the size of the away end at Blackburn. If it could have been pay on the gate, there may well have been closer to 2,000 there rather than 1,500, but that was still a good following considering. And the tickets only went on sale quite late as well, so it wasn't a bad turnout, and it was certainly worth the trip, wasn't it? In the end,
certainly was. Mitch, you've made the journey as well. As it always seems to be the case at Blackburn, right? It's always cold, dark, and damp and raining. When the games kicked off, there was the certain vibes of, oh God, we're not going to get anything out of this. That's what I thought as the game kicked off, and they just dominated the ball for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a sort of, I don't know, back down to earth feeling for the crowd was good for maybe the first sort of 6 or 7 minutes, but there wasn't a lot coming back from Blackburn, and then it all just sort of quietened down, didn't it, and went into what it felt to me like a bit of a sort of League Cup lull, as you kind of start thinking, why have I come to a third round League Cup game where we're obviously going to get beat, because they were knocking it around really well. We were sort of chasing them and harrying, but not really getting a lot of the ball. I don't think we had a chance for the first 15, 16 minutes, something like that. I think the first thing we did was Apter got through and had a really weak shot at the keeper, and then they just took the dominance over again. So it didn't instantly start. It didn't feel like one of those games that was magic from the kickoff at all.
Matt, did you see the game at all on Sky?
I did, yeah. I decided not to go, having made the mistake of the Cambridge weather forecast and only having just dried out by Tuesday morning. I thought the last thing I need to do is get a soaking at Blackburn. So I thought I'd just be lazy and press the red button and watch it from the comfort of my front room.
The rain, Nick, on the M55 was like a monsoon on the way down there, wasn't it? So
it was, yeah. It was a bit biblical, wasn't it? Calmed down a bit just about by the time the game kicked off. And I echo what Mitch said. They just looked a little bit quicker than us on the ball, which I suppose you'd kind of expect, wouldn't it? They probably, they did rest a few, but they're still championship players, and we were sort of huffing and puffing, not really creating much, but still in the game. Obviously, they got the penalty. Haven't seen a replay. Was talking to a couple of people at halftime who said people who had thought maybe their guy sort of kicked, was it Casey's leg, I think, or foot? I have to admit, I did think it was a penalty just from what, when it happened live. There wasn't many people around us sort of saying, why is he given that? And I suppose from the rest point of view, he doesn't have the luxury of a replay, and from his angle, it probably did look like he, once you get the wrong side, you've got the attacker the wrong side of you as a defender, you're putting yourself in that situation where any contact, he's going to go down. So I can absolutely see why it was given. Really, there weren't many people sort of complaining about it. Really,
Matt, I'll come to you about this next incident. A penalty shout down the other end. It was difficult to see from our end. It was down the far side, but a lot of people on the stream were saying definite penalty for Blackpool. So I wonder if you could shed any light on that.
Well, annoyingly, John, I can't. I'm being brutally honest. Mainly because I'd literally had to go and sort my son out at that particular point, because he was shouting and bawling over something that he was having to do for university. So that was probably the only minute I missed.
Oh, you did a Smith. You did a Smith on the penalties.
I did. Yeah. So, so absolutely useless in this particular instance, I'm afraid to say. Right. So you'll have to ask somebody else.
Mitch, has anyone seen this replay?
Yeah, I've seen a replay, and I've seen a replay, and where a referee live, I'd have given it, and where I went to the VAR screen, I would have given it. I thought Casey was clumsy. I mean, you could probably, some people might have poured over it and looked at the angle of the legs and everything, but I've watched the replay once and I've seen it live once, and both times it looked like Casey sort of, I don't think it was an intent to trip him as such, but Casey got in a position where he tripped him, whether he was trying to trip him or not. And the way I always look to the way a player goes down as a sign of whether he's given a penalty, and both live and on the replay, he just goes without. It's not a dive. It's not premeditated. He's not trying to buy that penalty. It looked like a penalty to me.
Great analysis, but I was actually talking about the penalty that we should have had down the far end.
Oh, that one. So well, no, because I was at the ground, wasn't I? I
know.
There you go.
I agree with what you've just said before. I think I
can put it in the edit, John. We can move the order around, and then now I'll say something like, "No, any
more armchair fans? Anyone's watching on the TV? Let us know. Was it a pen down the far end? Because Daniele, good to meet him. The captain, the ship's captain.
Top bloke.
Yeah, good to meet him. He was there, and he was fixated on the game. He was angry, giving it all the Italian gesticulations that it was a definite pen. He was 100% sure it was a penalty, but I'd just be interested to see it back anyway. Nick, double substitution, forced injuries on 26 minutes. Ryan Finnegan and Ollie Casey both going down at exactly the same time. Jimmy coming on for Casey and Lee Evans coming on for Finnegan. Strange to see that scenario. Has anyone ever seen two players getting injured at exactly the same time? Ever?
I was trying to think. No, I don't know if Casey's was because of the coming together on the penalty or not. But then, yeah, Finnegan at the same time as well. And I've not heard any updates as to how they're doing, how serious it is. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious. But yeah, at that point, you're thinking two forced substitutions relatively early in the game. You're 1-0 down. We've not won there since 1977, and we're thinking, oh, why have we bothered? Here we go again, after sort of the excitement of the 4 goals against Cambridge. And at half-time, to be fair, people I was talking to were still sort of relatively optimistic. It was, it's not out of sight at all. And we were trying to knock it around when we could without necessarily making too many inroads and on an attacking front. But at 1-0, all it takes is a little bit of genius from Rob Apter and Bees to be the man on the spot, and you're back in the game.
We certainly were. We did have, I'd say first half, closing this off, the Blackburn were probing. We did have quite a couple of sort of half chances, Rob Apter as well. And that other one where, who did it fall to? Was it Beasley and his Embleton? Yeah,
that
it was
the one where
Embleton.
Apter cuts in, absolutely
it.
smashed it. The keeper couldn't hold it, sort of palmed it away, and it fell to. I read it as Embleton in the ground, and Embleton put it sort of somewhere. He CJ'd it somewhere into the river next to the Blackburn ground. It's called.
He CJ'd it. That's a good one. Yeah, you'd expect someone of Embleton's quality to have, as Tim's brother would say, hit the target in that scenario. Embleton he still looks a bit rusty to me.
Yeah, he's not. He was playing sort of wide left, really, wasn't he? I think on Tuesday night, and I've only ever really seen him as a number 10 type of player personally. And whether we can accommodate that, I'm not quite sure. But I'm sure he's still. God, I think, was it Tuesday night, his first 90 minutes for 20 months or something crazy?
He's not fit, is he? And I think he's own. We know there's a quality player there, and it's just a case of him getting the minutes under his belt, I think, and he will, he'll go from strength to strength, and we'll see the best of him. He just needs to catch up, doesn't he, and get game time.
Yeah, still a dreadful
telling
penalty.
Sorry, we're going to. I was suggesting he was still telling the Keogh left it on.
Can't wait for the next game. The next player to sky one into Rose Z. CJ'd it.
Sorry, CJ.
It is a verb, Mark. It is. It is. Okay, Mitch, as Nick's previously mentioned, Jake Beasley's goal, obviously, because I mentioned to you, I could have knocked that in. Anyone on this podcast could have knocked that in, but that game was that goal was made by the trickery of the magical boots that Rob Apter wears.
Well, it was, and the thing I've noticed about watching Apter in the flesh slightly more regularly than once or twice in pre-season, then him disappearing on loan, is he's very very
CJ-like.
For a flair player, he's very efficient, isn't he? He sort of gets the ball. He's very direct. His tricks aren't very elaborate. He kind of draws the man in and then pokes it past him and does a little
like Stanley Matthews, Ballon d'Or winner.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, Don't compare him to Stanley Matthews, because the last player you did that with was CJ Hamilton, and nothing's had a good game since. But yeah,
The weight of that pressure has made his shoulders crumple.
But it's very simple, but very effective, and kind of very sort of almost unstylishly technical for a flair player. And what I liked about the way Apter, I'll come to the goal in a second. What I liked about the way Apter played was he barely got a kick for the first 20 minutes. And you could see him sort of going hunting for the ball. You could see him moving and popping up in the middle and sort of dropping into a little pocket and stuff. And he grew into the game. And I think that's a really, really good sign for a kid who's 21, who, you know, we've all got a lot of hope invested in him, but it's a really good sign to see him coming up against a good side and finding his way into the game and finding his way to be effective. The goal itself was lovely play by him, beat his man and did just about the minimum he could do to beat his man, if that makes sense. Just got past him, was free, was very, very calm, measured the ball in. And actually, I think you do Bees a little bit of a disservice, because I actually thought Bees took it really well, because he kind of killed it and put the goalie on his arse and then tapped it in. It wasn't just a tap in. It was actually, I thought it was quite a nice finish.
To the room. My gran could have popped that in.
I mean, you know, 1 minute with Bees, people will be going, oh, he's not a League One striker, and you know he's not done anything in the game, and then he popped up with a goal, doesn't he? He was thinking he was second top scorer last season, and for his time on the pitch, I don't know what the ratio is, but it must be pretty decent, really, because he does put the ball in the back of the net. I'm not saying he's necessarily a starter week in, week out. But he was in the right place at the right time, and it gets us back in the game.
But
and
just think
credit to credit to Keogh as well. You know, with a bit of a formation switch during a game.
Yeah,
how refreshing was that? Again, you're kind of looking on in wonderment from the stands, because you forget that these things can happen, and you don't just have to stick to plan A. It showed there was a plan B, and for a manager who he's only been a coach 5 weeks, is it? Let alone been a manager for a couple of games. And I think to see what was happening and make that change in it, for it to be positive and work, you've got to say fair play to him. And it was, again, really, really refreshing to see that. I think even if we'd have gone on, you know, we rode our luck a bit, which we'll come on to in the last 10 or 15 minutes. And if they'd have got one and we'd have lost on pens or something, you'd still come out that ground thinking, do you know what? Fair play. We had a go at it. We didn't just go through the motions of this is the rigid system and we get beat. We had a go and it came off, and fair play to him.
I'll just put my 2 penny thing about Apter. Is I think what's refreshing about him, like you say, he doesn't necessarily, he's not lightning quick or anything like that, or have a box full of tricks or anything. But what he's got, he's as well, he's 2 pretty good feet, and he can put the ball in with both feet. He can shoot. He shot with the left a couple of times on Tuesday night, but obviously he crossed that ball to Beasley with his right foot. And that's, for a defender, that's a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? Because you don't know where or when, importantly, he's going to cross the ball or shoot. And that's a massive really of him. Whereas you compare that to, with respect, other wingers in our club, and I'm talking both sides, and what they don't use the stronger foot for. Usually the other one goes, you know, a bit north or south, depending on whichever stand we're shooting towards. But I think there's a little bit of we've got to look after him, obviously, and there's going to be a bit of clamour for him to start every game. And I just hope that he can just go on this what seems to be a very steady upward trajectory, and we get the most out of him for the next however long it'll be, because I'm sure, as usual, come January, if he's doing really well, the bigger clubs will come circling around us, won't they?
Yeah. Mitch, as Nick's alluded to just before, change of shape tended to happen when the subs were made on 68, 69 minutes. It's no coincidence that we scored 2 goals when that A, it was a change of shape, but B, the substitutions, most importantly, weren't just like for like slotted into the same system. And that's paid absolute dividends for Blackpool, because 3 minutes later we've gone 2-1 up. Sorry, got it back to 1-1, and 5 minutes later 2-1 with the IPA hipster brewer, bagging the winner.
Well, first,
as I said to you, he's going to bring out a new IPA brew called Blackburn 1977, in a similar vein to a kind of
$5.95 for a little can. $5.95 for a little can, and it'll have some elaborate description of it on the label, and really, it'll taste like all the rest.
Yeah,
they all taste the same.
They all taste the same.
Yeah, on the subs first, it was, if you remember, our newfound Italian friend said, "What should we do?" And we concluded between us that we should go to the front three. And about 35 seconds later, the board went up, and it was indeed changes and a front three. But if you remember, all three of us went at the subs he made, because it didn't instantly make sense what he was doing. You kind of who was coming off and who was coming on. It took about a minute to process, well, where's he going? Right, he's taking him off. And I sort of fully expected, because I'm so in tune with what Critchley was doing, I fully expected to see number 22, CJ Hamilton, coming off the pitch, number whatever he is, 25, Robert Apter. You know, you kind of really, really expected that. And I saw he was coming on. I was like, okay. And he's like, oh, he's leaving Beasley on. Right. Oh, he's leaving Apter on. Okay, how's this going to work? And it was just brilliant to see A, attacking changes, but B, changes that you hadn't made in your head that weren't obvious. You know, that's kind of what you want from a manager, isn't it? A bit of nous, somebody who'll think that sort of that step ahead. So that was really good. And Coulson's goal was lovely. I mean, it was simple as hell, wasn't it? He just barreled through onto the lad dallying on the ball, took the ball, exploded into the box, and Keogh said he finished it like a veteran striker. It was better. It was like a Marco van Basten finish or something. It was brilliant. He just sort of swerved it into the place where the keeper wasn't and ran away like it was the easiest thing in the world. And it was a brilliant moment. Great goal, and I think it was nice because it was a goal that came from the effort we were putting in and the hard work we were putting in. And we were still pressing hard on 75 minutes. We were still racing into stuff on 75 minutes. Whereas I think what we've seen over a period of time is, we've had some okay starts to games, but we tend to fade out and not really offer a lot as the game goes on. But we're sort of charging into them. Brilliant goal. It was probably the most I've celebrated a goal for ages.
It was chaos, wasn't it? It was weird in the, in that away end. There was just it was like a lull. It was just like a typical round 2 Carabo Cup game until Beasley scored, and it was like a firework. It was like a whole factory of fireworks exploding. The whole atmosphere changed, didn't it? And it was an atmosphere of expectation. Don't
forget, we hit the bar not long before that as well. We had that one where the keeper spilled it out to Norburn, and Norburn sort of, I can't remember if he volleyed it or lifted it onto the bar. And I think that got everybody just up. And then the changes came not long after that. And then it was kind of, it felt like, it sort of felt like, we both went to Reading, didn't we? We stood together at Reading, and what a damp squib that was. And that was one of those games where you're really thinking, this is going to be fantastic. It's going to be one of the all-time games. This is going to be, 6-3 at Swansea away type feeling of, amazing. And it was just crap. And that game went the opposite way. And that was the first, I don't know what Cambridge was like, but that was the first time I felt like I've been in a really proper Blackpool crowd for ages.
Dan's just said in the comments, I think he's hit the nail on the head there. It felt like a release of the last 12 months plus of frustration. Absolutely, Dan.
Like you say, you can count on easily on one hand the amount of times we've come back from a goal down, let alone to draw, not even to win. And it just felt like football's back. And I don't want to keep harping on about how it was, but again, there's no way under Critch that's happening. We'd just be stood there getting more and more frustrated watching the same.
We wouldn't have even been there in the stadium, Nick. None of us would have been there. I wouldn't have been there.
True. We probably wouldn't have gone. But we don't go and get the 2-1, do we? Because he wouldn't have made those changes. And it's just like I said in the comments, just a release of 12 months of frustration and just the joy of enjoying football again.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob Apter's nearly made it 3-1 not long after. Superb save from the keeper, to be fair. And 8 minutes has gone up on the board at the end. Was anyone really worried? I think they were having a lot of pressure, a lot of corners, but I had a good feeling inside me that we were going to keep them at play.
And this is the difference. Obviously, when you're at the game like you guys were, it's sort of different. But I was sat down, pretty relaxed in the front room. I wouldn't say feet up exactly, but my thought was, Ballard's going to get a third here, rather than we're going to hang on grimly for 2-1. Which, all right, obviously they had a bit of pressure and all the rest of it, but I thought, I haven't had that thought for ages that we might actually go and score another one because they're pressing forward. Well, that's just the mentality change that, well, certainly I've had, and it seems that the players and everyone else has had as well, literally in 5 days since Keogh's been in charge. And yeah, it sort of flew by for me that last 8 minutes, I must admit. It probably didn't feel like that in the ground necessarily. But it never, I think they had a couple of saves that O'Donnell did, I think, possibly in the last minutes that I can remember.
Made some great saves, actually, throughout the game.
Yeah, but it never really looked like we were going to, crumble, like we obviously sort of collapsed on the Saturday a little bit.
I was going to say those O'Donnell saves at the ground. Blackburn is one of those grounds that always just seems like the other end is about 300 yards away. I don't know why. Some grounds are like that, aren't they? But the O'Donnell saves looked really good at the ground. I don't know whether they actually were really good. It was just my sort of nerves amplifying how good they were. And it did look from where we were. It looked like the ref kept giving penalties, but he was actually waving play on.
Yeah.
It was I think twice. We were like, shit, he's giving it. Oh, no, he's not. He's waving play on.
Yeah, they do that a lot these days. They sort of point the same way for a goal kick like they do for a penalty, don't they? You bastard.
Yeah, the shit houses.
Because they kept claiming, the crowd were claiming for everything, weren't they, every couple of minutes? And there's one bit where it looked like, I can't remember, it was a Blackpool had thrown somebody to the ground, and I thought, God, what's he doing? And then we gave a free kick sort of just in from the corner flag. And there was a bit of me thinking, when you see 8 minutes go up, are we going to hang on? But yeah, it's just a bit of a different mindset, I think, from the players as well, which makes a difference. And we managed to, and it was fantastic to see.
Certainly was a joyous occasion, but Nick, what made it even more joyous for me personally was Jim gave me a can of Moretti to drink on the journey from where we parked the car to the stadium. I was eating an apple. By the time we'd power walked through the rain, I'd not even opened the can, so we're not having time to drink this. I think it was the best look either. Swigging a can while I'm walking with my 11-year-old son at an away game at Blackburn, so I better not. So I just put it next to those railings near the car park as we approached the stadium. And then after the game, as we're all coming out, cock a hoop, Eddie says to me, Dad, I think that can of yours is still there. I said, is it? Forgot about that. So it was still there, unopened, nice and cold as well. So pulled it open. Me and Jim, it tasted so sweet, that beer, after that victory, and the fact it was still there. It was a great moment. Even Eddie was
make up for walking off from your pint before the game.
Yeah, he got a pint and then disappeared. Jim was hammered. He necked 2 pints in about 10 minutes.
Well, I shared it with him in the end, and I decided it was my podcast wages. I've had a third of a pint off John. Not worth it for the 70 episodes or whatever.
was supposed to be buying Jim was buying me a pint for driving. I was desperate for piss, so I was going for piss. I actually mumbled, "Don't bother, I'm all right," and I don't think he heard me. And yeah, by the time I got you'd all disappeared. So they mustn't have got me on. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed your half pint.
20 minutes with it. Going, where is he?
And what do we think of the? I mean, it took long enough the draw for the next round, didn't it? It was about midnight by the time that they brought our ball out. But Chef Wednesday at home, I mean, it makes me laugh that yeah, I know it could have, but the seed in it for the big teams, you know, because they haven't got big squads. These top six teams are in Europe.
Feel sorry for them.
So, yeah, bless them. Yeah, Chef Wednesday at home. It could have been better. It could have been worse. I you know, if you look at our luck in cup draws over the years, I thought we were just going to get somebody miles away from home that we weren't going to win. So at least it's a home game. There should be, you know, if they price it right, should be a decent crowd. We'll probably give them a decent number of tickets. So should be a good atmosphere, and you know, there's a chance we can win it.
Yeah, obviously Ashley Fletcher against his old club would be interesting from his perspective, and wee Barry Bannon coming back to the seaside as well, of course. A little bit of something there for the journalists or whatever to get the teeth into. But yeah, I was just glad it was home, and you know, like I say, a fairly decent draw. Really, I suppose it could have been, you know, I don't know, Brighton away or something on a Tuesday. Wouldn't have been much use to much of us, would it? So yeah, we'll see what develops.
And to continue the theme of pints being bought for me, we Barry Bannon bought me and Rob a pint in, where were we? One of the bars uptown, Shea Bar. It's kind of just before he was famous, when he just signed on loan. Rob goes, "That's Barry Bannon." And I said, "Who's Barry Bannon?" He's playing for us this season. I said, "Is he?" And so Rob went over to start chatting to him. He was the sound guy. It was Barry. Bought us a pint, me and Rob. I think I'd fucked off again, actually. And he went out of his way to say, "Give that to your mate. I bought him a pint." A legend. Absolute legend. But yeah, I like the draw. I like the fact that it's a championship club. They're not going to be that arsed about it because they're 100% focused on getting to the Premier League. They probably play a weakened side. Big following at Bloomfield Road. I know a lot of people don't like the East being sold out. I do personally. I like the atmosphere. Be a good atmosphere. Get the pricing right. 10, 15 quid a head. Fill the stadium. Bring it on. Let's have another big cup night at Bloomfield Road and the lights. Mitch, are you happy with the draw?
Yeah, well, too. But basically, what you just said, it's kind of a free hit, but with a chance to win it. And secondly, because my mate Sean is a big Sheffield Wednesday fan, and we've been planning to go to a game when we play Sheffield Wednesday for ages, but we just don't seem to have actually been in the same division. We seem to always be. They might go down and we might go up, or vice versa for ages. So we keep going, oh, next season we can go to that game, and then it doesn't quite happen. Like they don't go down or we don't go up or whatever happens. So finally we've got that game. So I'm happy with it on that level.
4 home games in a row. Thanks, David. Good start.
Yes. Which segues nicely into Saturday, doesn't it?
Oh, just before that, Nick. I know we've done the managerial chat in the last pod, but as the banner says there, Keogh for Gaffer, ? Now, is there? I know the transfer window closes soon, but is there a valid option to just let this run for a bit with Keogh in charge, see how he goes in a caretaker role, and then potentially give him the job with an experienced man behind him?
If I start answering,
Mitch, you go first.
I'll probably still be going in about 10 minutes because I think it's pretty clear that my view would be yes, you've got to give him a go. I think there's multiple reasons. Number one, I'm not convinced that there's a realistic outstanding candidate. I think the one that I would be happiest with would be Wellens. Whether we can go and get him or not is a question mark. outside of Wellens, I see a lot of managers at this level and below being, experienced managers this level or below being a bit mediocre. And I don't want somebody mediocre. I think we've tried the very carefully thought out tactical appointment of somebody multiple times, and it hasn't worked. I think Keogh is a gamble, but so far that gamble is paying off. And I think a bit like I felt with Dobby, because he's had a similar effect to Dobby. He's come in, he's galvanized things, he's created a mood, he's got a positivity, he's showed some nous. The players are clearly playing for him. I think that's the one thing we didn't mention about the defensive rear guard at Blackburn. The players put their bodies on the line, they threw themselves in front of things in a way that they weren't playing like that against Stockport and Crawley and some other games. So, there's a spirit there. He showed some tactical awareness. He's spoken well. He's spoken intelligently. I know he looks a bit overawed sometimes, but actually, if you listen to what he's saying, it's intelligent. And there's a humility to him, which I really like. There was another thing he said after his first game that I really liked, where he said to him, Richard, that was a crazy game. What did you make of it? And he went, oh, well, I think I'm going to have to watch it back to decide what I think. And if you remember, Critchley would, after every game, he'd describe exactly what happened as if he'd made his mind up on the touchline. And I thought it was really interesting, Keogh saying, don't know, I'm going to go and watch it. I'm going to think about it. So there's clearly that desire to learn and that humility to learn. And I don't know, I might be wrong. It might all fizzle out after 5 games, and he might be crap, and he might just be a nice bloke, and the players have got that sense of release. But we might get an established manager. We might get Wellens in, and Wellens has got a bit of an attitude. He might piss everybody off and alienate half the squad and demand a whole set of new players, and it all go wrong. There are no guarantees, and so far, I think Keogh has done a fantastic job. And I think coming out of Blackburn, I said I can't remember who I said it to. It might have been Nick, it might have been Jim. But I said, bottom line for me is, on Saturday, would you be disappointed after the last 2 games if Keogh wasn't the manager and we didn't play the style that we've played in the last 2 games? And whoever it was said, yeah, I would. And that's the bottom line for me. I want him to be the manager on Saturday. And so that's my answer. I said it would be a long one, but that's my answer. I think we run with it. We run with the vibes. We made a mistake with Dobby. We went for the strategic portfolio choice and not the sort of the feeling and the sense. And I've just got a feeling and a sense for Keogh. And I think Keogh is somebody who has got a feeling and a sense for football, which is something we haven't had for a while. The end.
Matt, Nick, thoughts?
I have to say that's a pretty compelling case put forward and by Mitch, and very, very eloquently put with some very good points. I suppose we don't know who else is in the frame. That's the thing. I know there's a list, but whether the people on it are actually genuinely people who were interviewing or just guesswork, I don't know. I think, a lot of people have talked about Wellens. I think he was probably, of the list, the one who would meet with most approval. I think if it was a Pete Wild, that might be a one that splits the fan base, and I would probably lean towards Keogh ahead of somebody like that. But, it is only 2 games, and I really, really like what I've seen so far. But I'd also maybe just like to see who else is in the frame possibly, and I think that's probably what Simon Sadler will do is, just take a step back and consider it. But if that means in the meantime, look like it looks like it's going to be for Saturday that Keogh carries on, and I suppose each time if he continues to improve and we get a result on Saturday, then I suppose it makes it, he's almost putting himself in a stronger and stronger position, isn't he, as being part of the conversation each time he takes charge of a game if it goes to plan. But it is only 2 games so far, so I'm still a bit on the fence with it. But I wouldn't be gutted if it happened, that's for sure, because I think he's shown in those 2 games that he can get the players playing for him, and and maybe that's all you need to do. We will see.
Matt, pair Keogh up with an experienced football man, the likes of Gary Bowyer spring to mind. Wouldn't necessarily be a terrible option, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I wonder whether he needs anybody with him. He's got 600 plus league games himself, hasn't he? International, all the rest of it. He's done as much as you can do in the game itself, other than manage, obviously. I mean, people have obviously been asking myself who would I want in, and I just gave a stock answer of somebody who would entertain me, because I haven't been entertained, quite frankly, for 18 months and more. And the last 2 games have entertained me. So I'm not going to look much further than Keogh, particularly. I think that with most managers these days, the length of time that they get at clubs is ridiculous anyway. It's less than 12 months, I think, on average, or something crazy like that. So whether we just sort of see where we go until, the end of the year, literally the end of 2024, or longer till the end of the season, depending on how things go. But I just don't see a reason not to consider him, really. The other names that are in the frame, Wellens is on a 3-year deal at Orient, so that's going to cost a lot of money if we want to buy him out of that contract, or however. The guy from Barrow, or ex-Barrow, Pete Wild, and a couple of other names have been mentioned. Must admit, don't really know a lot about them, other than they've done seemingly well on sort of shoestring budgets, and is doing well on shoestring budgets what we need, or do we need managers that are like a figurehead and a dad to these players, and they can get the best out of them? And from what I've seen so far, I think Keogh could have that attribute that certain other players and managers don't have. And yeah, I'd be a bit pissed off, quite frankly, if he wasn't in charge on Saturday. And then I think we'll make a decision after the Saturday game, I'm sure. But I hope if we get a positive result on Saturday, he stays in charge. I just don't see anything negative about doing it, particularly. We've taken punts in the past on various managers who were dead and buried, shall we say, and we've taken punts on certain other managers that we've never heard of, and they seem to work. So, let's take a punt on this guy, I think.
Which nicely leads us on to Wycombe at home on Saturday. I was thinking, let's do a quick one this evening. Keep it under an hour, but around 17. So we'll rifle through this. For me personally, I'm really looking forward to this game now. I think the atmosphere is going to be completely different. There's going to be a lot of expectation, excitement at the game. And I think we're going to turn Wycombe over. They've had a reasonable start. 16. What's that?
Careful, John.
There's winds of change, Mitch. Winds of change at Bloomfield Road.
They've had a good start, though, haven't they?
Yeah, they've lost 2, won 1, 3 points.
Won
1-1.
Won at
Lost
Swansea
2.
last night, didn't they?
Yeah.
Beat Rotherham.
It's quite funny.
Saturday.
The Swansea podcast. They were, follow them on Twitter, on X. They were berating their stats. I think they were saying once again we have 78% possession or something like that, with like 0 shots on target. And I was like, oh, where have we all heard that before? But it's typical Swansea. But yeah, they've beaten Rotherham, but they're on 1 point as well. So go on.
It's a great contrast to last year, because Wycombe was one of the games where patience really started to fray with Critch, because it was the game he dropped Dembele and we just sort of knocked it around in front of the defence, and occasionally Sonny had a shot from 25 yards and nothing really happened, and we drew 0-0 at a point where we desperately needed the 3 points. It's one of those games where you look back and go, for fuck's sake, Critch, if you'd have grasped that and thrown something at it, we probably would have got the playoffs. So it's a great contrast to see how we do against the same side, who are, they're not Cambridge. They're not Cambridge are clearly a bit hapless at the back. Wickham are, quite well structured, quite well drilled side who'll probably come being happy enough with a point. And it'll be a really interesting test because I very much doubt the way we've played, we're going to sit and knock it around in front of them and nothing happen for 90 minutes. I think we'll probably try and overload them and sort of challenge them to keep us out. And that'll be a really, really interesting test. And I think what you said about the atmosphere will be interesting because it's one of Wickham. Who are Wickham? What is Wickham? Where is Wickham? Does anybody know? They are, I know they've been in the league for about 40 years, but they still feel like a non-league club, don't they? And it's those kind of games where the atmosphere is often a bit of a challenge. You need the away team, and we're certainly not going to have a packed East stand. And it'll be interesting to see if we can get an atmosphere going ourselves and sort of really get behind the style and the vibe. And there's so many League One, crappy opposition, League One, 1-0, 0-0 games last year where it'd be great if we can make a bit of an occasion of it.
It'd be a depressing occasion if Neil Critchley was still in charge this game. It's something one game you'd be thinking of giving your ticket away for, right, frankly.
Yeah.
Right, before we go, let's very quickly pick the team.
I thought we were going to do that if we're having a quick one.
Well, I've thought about this and I've thought about this. So I can give you the overview. If we don't play 4 at the back, we can't play Gabriel. However, if we play 4 at the back and want a front 3, we're going to struggle to fit Robbie Apter in. So that's the gist, is who do we want to play more, Robbie Apter or Jordan Gabriel? And then everybody else more or less picks themselves.
Well, I think we know the answer to that, don't we?
Robbie Apter.
Yeah. So
we want Cal Joseph on the left. We want Cal Joseph at the left of the front 3 as well, don't we?
Yeah, I feel like it has to be 3-4-3.
Which we haven't got. We haven't got.
We've got the formation. Here, John.
You just have to do it by numbers, John.
Can you not move them around?
I haven't done that formation in this app.
I'll tell you one thing: we're so used to it being a Critch formation. That's why. Yeah, but we need to. Well, we're going to have a new keeper, aren't we, on Saturday? I would imagine he will. Do you think he'll start?
Harry
Trier.
Do you think he'll start?
He's not even listed on the official website yet.
Is he not?
Hence why my scraping software wasn't scraping the scraped the name out. What's his name again, Nick?
Harry Trier.
Tyra,
is it?
He's a unit, isn't he? He's about 6'4".
6'4".
6'4".
Spelled like that.
Heart. Yeah. Can you not just click the 4th? Oh no, I've got 3-4-3. You're right. Yeah.
Change it to a 4-3-3 then.
Have you got 3-4-1-2?
No. 4-2-3-1. How's about that?
It's going to be tricky, isn't it?
You'll have to draw a line on it afterwards.
Yeah, it is going to be tricky because I don't think after ignoring Tuesday night to a degree, I think your front 3 from Saturday start again because I think they work really, really well.
Yeah.
So I think that's your Fletcher, your Ballard, and Joseph.
100%.
And then you've got Evans behind them.
Yeah.
And then you start to ask questions, don't you? Then you got Norburn in, then you got Coulson / Apter to fit in, or CJ, I dare say. And then, like you say, you've got your Gabriel question. You've got, does Jimmy play at left back and there are so many questions actually.
And there's potential injuries as well.
But we're just not used to potentially thinking about anything, are we? Because it's just been so rigid for however long. So Yeah, it will be different.
This is going to take longer than the League Cup draw.
It is. Yeah, the Champions League one. Bloody hell! Did you see that? Jeez.
Well, I'd go Matt's front three. I'd put Raptor right, Coulson left, Norburn and Evans in midfield, and then I'd have a back three, which should be Jimmy on the left, Baggett, whatever he's called, in the middle, and then we'd have to find somebody to play the right centre-back role, which in the absence of Casey, possibly could Gabriel play that, and then Tyre in goals. I think that would be, for me, the strongest setup. I think the 3-4-3 has got problems. I don't necessarily think it's if you went formation to formation with ideal players, you wouldn't necessarily pick 3-4-3. But I think out of what we've got and how we get the most attacking threat on the pitch, I think that would be the answer. Whether Gabriel could play right centre back is a moot point. I don't know. He's good in the air, but he does like to bomb on. And really, if you're right centre back, you shouldn't be bombing on in the way a full back does. I can't think who else can play right centre. Isn't Sassy left-footed?
Pennington can, because he's been doing.
Oh, Penno, of course. Yeah. You pop Penno in there, then that would be the answer. But then you've got the lack of pace.
Yeah.
Again.
Well, I was going to say, and that's a plus for playing Gabriel there, possibly, isn't it? Because he can, that's the one thing that has screwed us over at Cambridge was the lack of pace in the last 25 minutes to half an hour. And whether, positionally necessarily his game, and he'll probably get caught out once or twice, but let's be honest, don't they all at the back at the moment? So, we'll just, if we can see 3, we score 4. That's the mentality we should have now anyway.
Yeah, and when you're playing that style, that sort of chaotic style, those players with real pace have a certain value to them. They really do, because they can tidy up in a way when it all gets out of shape, and they've got the pace to sort of react to the situation, which I think we really struggled with against Cambridge. Was it Penno and Husband on either side? They just looked like they were really wallowing.
Yeah, it was
just couldn't keep up.
Casey was right, and
Casey, yeah,
and that's
it was, wasn't it? They both looked like they were really sort of wallowing when the game got out of shape, because they just couldn't keep up with the mania.
Totally.
I do think he'll play the I called him Try before it's Tyra from Everton, because we let Grimmy go, didn't we, to Plymouth, and I don't think we've signed the lad from Everton to be a backup to O'Donnell. I think he played for Chesterfield last season and got rave reviews there. So I expect that he's going to be our number one.
I agree. I think he'll go straight in, Nick. O'Donnell's had a mixed game at Cambridge, but he kept us in the 2 or 3 top saves at Blackburn, so it'll be a bit harsh. But
and you love a sub keeper, don't you, John?
Stuart Moore should never have sold him. Never. I think we'll leave it there, gents. A little to-do list added to my to-do list app to create 2 more formations on the football team picker app. So I think we'll leave it there. We're on this quick show has gone on for 90 minutes. Just round the room then before we head off very quickly. Match predictions, Matt, for Wickham.
I'll go 5-3.
I think
another 8 goals.
Crazy it sounds.
Good job we 3-3'd them. I'm going for that, Mitch.
3-1.
Nicholas.
I was going to go 3-1. I'll stick with that as well. I'll go 3-1. And like I say, it's just nice to be looking forward to a game of football again, isn't it?
Absolutely. Right, thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for downloading. Up the pool. Keogh.
Up the pool.
Been involved in 2. Can he make 3? Not on this occasion. Well taken by Walsh. Davis is on the far side. Ainscough coming square. That's the ball. That's a good try!